Welcome back to another episode of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm your host, Susie Selleck, here today at the Holy Guardian Angel Church in Cedar Grove, Indiana, and I'm joined by Jeroma Brown. Jeroma, thank you so much for having us here today.
Glad to be here.
So let's just get right to it. In the early days, right, how and why did the parishioners start? Where did they worship? Can you talk to us about that?
I can.
Okay.
In 1872, there were about 20 Catholic families living in this area, and there was no church here, so they had to worship in neighboring churches, St. Peter's, St. Joseph's, and St. Michael's. And so they had to appeal to the bishop to see if they could do that. And once given his permission, they set to it and started in.
And that's
plan.
There it is.
Yes.
That was the planning. So that was the planning period.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Right.
Perfect.
And so the very first church was very small, a little brick, and it is behind our present-day church. It accommodated those families at that time, but as time went on, they needed to build this church. But the early church, when this church was formed, it was turned into a school. And the Sisters of St. Francis from the Oldenburg Academy came over here to teach, and they taught until 1910. And at that time, Whitewater trustees took over the renting of the building, and they provided the teachers, and Holy Guardian Angels received the rent from that. So as time went on, they decided that they needed to enlarge the school. And I believe in 1916, 1918, they added the top floor because there was only one level. And they extended it on the side also so that they could accommodate all the different school kids, the classes. When the school was closed, the preservation committee have taken over, and they've kind of renovated it, and they've kept a lot of the history, a lot of the pictures of the priests and things like that. I have to tell you, in the early schooling, there was no indoor restrooms, so they had outhouses in the back for the school children.
Okay.
Those are gone, except there is still one on the front of the property, and I'm sure it's not in use. At least we hope it's not.
No, probably not.
But plumbing came to the school probably several years before the school was closed, because the Brookville Metropolitan School District came in and closed the school because of very low enrollment.
Oh.
Yeah. So that part was kind of good. It was kind of disappointing because our kids then were sent to Brookville to school.
Okay, gotcha. Jerome, can you talk to us about the present building, present church?
Yes, It was completed in 1895, and the workmen were also kind of given a lot of encouragement because the priest at that time, Monsignor Theodore Mesker, was really instrumental in seeing that things moved along. He would actually get out with the workmen and kind of see where things were going.
The Monsignor got out with the workmen?
Yes,
that's impressive.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
And so anyway, we're very proud of this building. I think some of the things the parishioners did to try to help along with it, but they had a fundraiser. It was called an outdoor festival, and they raised money through that. I have a ticket, and it shows like 50 cents. They must have paid for the dinners.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's it. That's interesting by today's standards.
Yes, it is. Very much. I'm like, a whole dinner, huh? So Jeroma, there is this beautiful altar behind us. It's lit, these candles, and can you talk to us about some of these fascinating pieces, what they mean, what they're about?
Yes, I can do that. The altar is referred to as the tabernacle altar, and it contains the blessed host, and Father will consecrate those at communion time. The altar and the angels on either side of it, the statues, one represents the adoration to the altar. The other one is in supplication, our prayer. And above it is our beautiful rose window. And that is the gift of two early priests. They were brothers, Father Meinrad and Father Joseph Flashman. Of course, it incorporates the angel, which is what our parish is named. The guardian angel is protecting the two children that are near the cliff and with a creek or whatever laying below it. So this kind of brings it all back into harmony as to what our church is all about.
Yeah.
The two paintings on either side of the altar. They are large canvases, and they were done by an Ramus Humbrecht, I believe his name is, and he immigrated to the United States from Alsace-Lorraine, and he ended up in New Orleans, and he did the church there, the Basilica in New Orleans.
Wow.
So he came here, must have been like an itinerant painter. I think he came into Cincinnati and was part of the painters of Christian buildings and different objects. So both of the paintings, the one on either side of the altar, the one represents the Holy Family, are also the Trinity in our church, the Father, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. The one on the other side is the crucifixion, and under it is the Blessed Mother and Mary and what they refer to as his beloved disciple, John. So actually in the one corner, he has his signature there, and it's kind of legible yet. You can still kind of make it out.
Very cool.
Yes.
So then, Jerome, as we move through the church, absolutely beautiful stained glass windows. There are so many more things to talk about, especially when you look up. So where do you want to start with this?
I will start with the frescoes in the ceiling, and those are painted on canvas and then attached to the ceiling, and they rate 1902 they were placed in the church. Sometime through the years they have been touched up, but it is still the original canvas paintings. Wow. They depict the Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane and the Good Shepherd who has given his life for his people. Some of them are St. Dominic and St. Peter and St. Agnes. There's little inscriptions or little notations underneath them, little pictures that present the Ten Commandments and the Lamb, which is Christ, the Lamb, that's representative to us. And they have the two large angels in the back, of course, keep bringing in our angels. So along the side of the church, on either wall, are the Stations of the Cross. There are 14 of them.
Yep.
And they were put in the church in 1902. Supposedly, I had heard that they came from Germany. They were bought through a company in Cincinnati, Ohio. But they start out with the very first station is when Christ was condemned to the cross, and then it takes his journey all the way through until Calvary. The two last statues or stations are of him dying on the cross, and the last one is of him laying in Mary's arms.
So there is a large statue in the back of the church. Can you talk to us about that, what it represents?
Yes, I can. It's the Pietà, and it's a replica of Michelangelo's Pietà, which is in the Vatican. He built that out of marble in 1499, and so this is a replica. What it is, it's a sorrowful mother holding the body of her son as he's been taken down from the cross. Yes. But it portrays the sorrowful mother, which of course is all part of our church too. Most of our statues are happy or more gay.
Yeah.
Yes, more. And so that is definitely a different.
So on an uplifting note, let's go upstairs to the balcony where this gorgeous organ is. Talk to us about that.
Yes, it is, and it is a prize. Actually, it was brought into the church in 1900, and in order to accommodate that, a parishioner, Matthew Hoffmar, built the arch around so that it was able to fit in up there. There's a lot of information about it. Mr. Robert Nevels, who lives in Evansville, Indiana, he is actually the organist there at the First Presbyterian Church, and because our organ was built in Evansville, Indiana, he kind of was interested in it. He researched this and tried to see how many were still in operation. I think there were a little over 100 built, but there are like 5 that are still in operation within the United States that he knows of. And that's probably due to the fact that we keep it is serviced every year or two by a company in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I need to also say the man's name who built it. It was Edmund Geisk, and he was German. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but anyway.
Sounds good to me. Sounds very German to me.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, this is absolutely a beautiful piece.
It has 2 ranges. Actually, it has 2 keyboards, and it has a wide range of sound. And Mr. Neville came here and actually he visited here twice. He came and actually played the organ. He's very impressed with it. He said it has every sound in the church, and you can just imagine what it sounds like when you have somebody that plays it.
Oh, yeah.
We have a young man who had played the organ here before our church was closed, and he still plays at St. Michael's today.
Okay.
Sam Shook, and he'll come back whenever we have our Thursday evening masses and play for us. And as soon as he starts, you just know that's Sam.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Jerome, one of my favorite things about every church, well, not every church, but the select few that have bell towers, is how they ring. So can you talk to us about the bell tower here and how it rings?
Yes, we have 3 bells One of them is 500 pounds, the second one is 1,000 pounds, and the third one is 1,500 pounds. One of the bells, and I'm assuming it was probably the smaller one, was in the original church, which is now the school. They are rung back in the well tar, I guess that's what you want to call it, the stairway that leads up to the choir loft.
Yep.
They're rung by ropes. You have to pull down on them, and it's kind of fascinating because when you have visions of these little server boys ringing the bells and rising to the ceiling. I don't think that happens.
Well, we'll have to see. We might get to ring those later, huh?
Yes, all right.
Okay. So then what is happening in the grotto?
Okay, down below the church, there's something that's often referred to as a grotto. And it all has boulders along the wall, and there's a little niche, a little way where there's a statue of the Blessed Mother, the Holy Family, actually. And at one time, when it was first formed, the priest, Father Charles Cleaver, started that. He collected boulders from down below in the creek bed, and supposedly he gave each one of the children a penny for every boulder they collected. So the wall down below, along with that little grotto part, is all lined in the boulders.
Wow.
We have at one time we had our CCD classes down there. That's the teaching of the confraternity of Christian doctrine.
Yeah.
And so it's really fascinating to see that the preservation committee, when our church was closed, they really did a lot of work down there, and they try to preserve a lot of the history of the church. So the walls are lined with those things, different prayer cards and mass cards, and some of it in Latin, some of it in English. So it kind of represents the early church. But to get back to Father Cleaver, not only did he do the grotto down below, but he had 7 benches out. 4 of them are still in the out on the in the graveyard or in the cemetery, and 3 of them are in front of the rectory, and they're still preserved in pretty good shape. They might have lost a boulder here or there,
right?
But other than that, it's really kind of fascinating.
Jerome, can you talk to us about the outside grounds?
Yes, there's a lot to cover there. Well,
yeah.
At first I did mention the school, which of course was the original church. Mm-hmm. On the top of there, the cross still remains, and that's a reminder to the parishioners and today that was once our first church. Also, there is the rectory, which of course we do not have a priest here now, so that building is rented out. Mm-hmm. The school, and I guess the next thing would be the cemetery. The cemetery is always kind of an interesting place, and a few years ago, actually in 2005, 2006, my grandson wanted to do something as an Eagle Scout project. So he made the plans out and presented it to the council, and the council approved it, and it was approved by the Archdiocese. So he began the plans. Joe Backus was not able to finish that, so his younger brother, Charlie, completed the project. And what it is, it really ties our whole church in because it comes in with the statue of the guardian angel. But to begin with, the entranceway will have a plaque dedicated to Joey, who had started the project, and his brother Charlie. So along the walkway are bricks, and those bricks were sold in order to finance the statue because it was quite expensive. The bricks have the inscriptions of any family that wanted to remember anybody in their family or whatever. So those were sold, and at the foot of the statue there are mentions the names of the 20 first parishioners that started the parish, mm-hmm. then those priests that served the parish, and also those who became priests from our parish. We have 6 young men that were ordained to the priesthood. 4 of those, 5 of them actually have passed away. The latest one of those passed away about 1.5 years ago, Father Benedict Meyer. The only one living today is Father Tom Bolte, and he has a double parish over in close to Fayetteville, Ohio.
Okay.
There also were 7 nuns. And it's kind of interesting to look back over that because at that time there might have been multiple vocations within a family.
Yeah.
The very first 2 priests from this family were Kaisers, Father Edwin and Father Albert Kaiser. And then the nuns, there were 2 sisters, Sister Amata and Sister Assumpta, and their last name was Hoffmeyer, and then the Weedwee sisters. So it's just kind of interesting to look back and see that vocation in that family was very strong.
Very strong.
Yes.
Wow.
But the statue is just gorgeous. You have to see it because it does bring back in our Holy Guardian Angels protecting the children. Mm. There is also right across from the statues, there is a marble bench that was a donation of the man that did the inscriptions or had the bricks inscribed. Okay, in 1978, our priest at that time, Father James O'Reilly, made a contract actually through the Archdiocese with volunteer firemen of Cedar Grove, and they built the shelter in the back for us, and they were to maintain that shelter, build it, all the construction, no cost to the parish, and they maintained it for a period of 15 years. In kind of in interchange between that, they were allowed to use it for their Firemen's Festival every year, and so anything that was rented out in between, the church was able to receive those, whatever they charged for it. So anyway, and after that length of time, the firemen went ahead and built their own shelter down at the other end of town.
Yeah.
And so now the shelter is used, that and the schoolhouse is used for people that want to have graduations, parties. They can, rent it out for anything. We still do today because the inside of the school has been absolutely redone. It's just beautiful inside. They knocked out a wall in between, made a large dining area,
nice.
And have a kitchen, so it too can be rented out, and it is. It's used primarily, I suppose, for like when we have funerals in this parish. People come back, and that's another thing. People come back from, even though our parish has been closed since 2013, they'll come back here for burials because they have burial plots here.
Yep.
Or they want to come back simply because this was the church that they may have been baptized in, so they will also maybe be married here. Father Vince has graciously permitted that to happen, so they can be buried here, have their funeral here, they can be baptized, their little ones, and they can also be married in this church.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So, yeah.
Jeroma, no church community is complete without people all serving in different positions. Can you talk to us about your people and the different roles that they served?
Yes, I think because it's the people that actually make the parish. Along with our priests, we have been blessed to have had 24 different priest service through the years, been pastors here. The people have volunteered in every capacity in the church. They are lectors, they read, they are choir members, they are the organist. There are people who clean the church, who provide the linens, even actually make some of the vestments for the priest. So I think without that, we would not have been able to come together. Another thing I'd like to mention is the church has always been solvent. We've never, other than maybe in the very early church, they may have had to borrow money, which I'm sure they did. But for the most part, we've always been able to take care of our own parish, pay our utilities, the upkeep of the church, because it's painted from time to time, and the carpeting has been laid out at that one time too.
Jeroma, I love all this history and everything that we've covered thus far, but what about today? Where do you worship today? What is that like?
Well, in 2013, our parish was closed, so many of us went to St. Michael's. Some of those that lived in outlying areas may have gone somewhere else, but for the most part, we go to St. Michael's. The priest there is Father Vince, and he comes here. Our church has been designated oratory since it's been closed. So that means that we can still celebrate the Mass here if we have the pastor or the priest that will do it. So Father Vince has been very gracious to do that. He comes here every Wednesday morning, and we have Mass at 7:30, and then every first Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock. So we are really very blessed to do that. One of the things I'd like to mention about the parishioners, they are a very giving community, not only in their treasures, what they have, but also physically. They actually get out and do the work on the grounds, whether it's trimming the cemetery, cutting weeds, whatever, to try to beautify, raking leaves, all that kind of stuff. So the people have become very involved, and they have volunteered in just about everything.
I mean, that is reminiscent, right? You and I were talking earlier of just the community that was back then that is now. I mean, you were talking about the Thanksgiving food drive.
Right.
Right. What you mentioned something else that's reflective of that.
Actually, too, thank you. We also had a Christmas giving tree.
Yes.
We had names of little ones on there, and then we would, there was a group that would knit scarves and mittens, and they would do that sort of thing, and then buy a gift for the child, maybe either a toy or a clothing of some kind. And then we also tried to give a food item to those same families, and we got the names of people. We did not try to pick anybody necessarily from our parish. Many of them, we did not matter to us whether they were Catholic or not. We just knew that they were people in need. And so I think that's said a lot about our community, and we still today, I think wherever we're at, we remained involved, either sing in their choir or work at any service that has to be done at the church.
Thank you for watching another episode of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm your host, Susie Selleck, here today in Cedar Grove, Indiana, at the Holy Guardian Angel Church, and I was joined by Jeroma Brown. Jeroma, you were fantastic. Thank you so much. And remember
to
travel slowly and stop often. Bye for now.